Now, the Defence Secretary has told MPs that the government cannot rule out state involvement in a hack at the Ministry of Defence, but refused to confirm reports that China was behind it.
Beijing has strongly denied reports it's behind the hack, saying the accusations are, quote, completely fabricated. Security specialist Will Geddes joins us now. Will, good morning to you.
Hi.
First of all, maybe I'm being too simplistic in this could possibly be some 20-year-old kid in Russia or, Eastern Europe with a bit of sophistication behind him. Why is it necessarily a state actor? Can you explain for those who are
OK, so we have to look at the landscape at the moment, the landscape of cybersecurity and particularly the risks from nation-states overseas that could be deemed as hostile. And we look at signatures of behaviour and we look at signatures of attack. Where are they attacking? What are the intentions? What are the motivations? And what could be the dividends or the returns on those investments of efforts? Now, it could very well be a 20-year-old who's in his mum's basement who's doing it, but he could have very well been instructed by a state actor to do it on their behalf, and that's not uncommon. It's a part of their plausible deniability process to say, we as a state haven't officially done it, we haven't done it out of an official agency, it's been done through a proxy, and this has nothing to do with us. So, again, we've seen this with Russia, we've seen this with China, we've seen it in Ukraine, we've seen it all over the world, where they will use separate entities to carry out these attacks. But we look at the targeting and we look at what they've targeted, and I'm having my own question marks about the border force system.
So am I, actually, funnily enough.
I think everybody is as well. So I think we have to consider at the moment that unless we're told otherwise, and it's confirmed otherwise, we are susceptible to a series of multi-platform attacks.
It seems to be the sort of, the modus operandi of the government at the moment, that wherever China is involved, there is a huge time lag before we're actually told. I don't know why, but it could well be that it's 2 years down the line before we're actually told exactly who was behind this. But in the meantime, all of us are wondering, is this a serious threat to national security? And are we being robust, as the Prime Minister claims, enough in dealing with this?
Well, I don't think we are being robust. I think there are a lot of people working behind the scenes very, very hard to keep us robust. But I think in terms of some of the political rhetoric coming out at the moment, I think you're absolutely right. The general public are not stupid, and they're not going to be duped by sort of very woolly information. Certainly, this information not coming out till sometime later, there are some question marks about that. There's the Information Commissioner Officer, which are responsible, obviously, for managing and setting legislation for the control and protection of data, particularly where it has members of the general public. So we can raise some question marks over the late release of information and whether it should have been reported, which is an obligation by an organisation if they do have a breach. But, yeah, there are lots and lots of interesting things going on right now. And in terms of the resilience, we heard about Grant Shapps' 8-point plan. It's pretty straightforward. You do a penetration test. This is done all the time in the private sector. You test by black, grey or white hackers, and those are the different types, the black being the complete anonymous hacker who knows nothing about the network, grey being partially aware of how the network is set up, and white is obviously the insider threat. You then test it, you see where the weaknesses are, you remediate those, you test it again. It's not difficult, and it's about resilience. That's the key thing. If the system does get attacked, what kind of measures have you got in place for early warning? And how can you relay the system into a secure environment so that you can continue to supply? We look at the airports, that raises questions about what kind of resilience did we have in place for a £372 million paid for by taxpayers system.
Yeah, no, it is really alarming, and you can go down a sort of rabbit hole of worry when you start thinking. I mean, we're talking to the government later about uranium enrichment plant that's being developed in the UK for the first time for decades.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a first for that particular programme. And then you think, well, if there's cybersecurity question marks and we're doing uranium enrichment, where does the security step in? And, are we safe? So there are, I think, serious questions about national security. Yeah,
I think there's a lot of questions to be raised about potentially elements in the private sector. And there are some very, very good technical and cyber-capable entities out there that can come in and cross-check. They can audit and test. And I think one of the biggest problems is it's a closed market. It's a little bit, I don't want to draw it in, but it's almost like the vaccine market. And that's going to open up a whole can of worms. But there has to be some cross-checking by third parties who have no vested interest other than to come in and test it.
But, Will, can I sorry to interject.
Yeah.
How on earth are we expected to protect our interests when, for example, a job posting for the Treasury yesterday, recruiting the head of cyber security was offering 57k a year. Might sound like a fairly decent wage for a lot of people, of course it is, but for that particular role, head of cybersecurity at the Treasury, not even 60k a year. You're not going to attract the best talent.
You're not. And you're going to get, hopefully, if they're lucky, someone very young, very early on in their career who's exceptionally talented. So you're whittling it down to a very, very, very small number of candidates. A chief information security officer in most companies will be earning at least £250,000 a year. So 5 times what they're offering. So we have to look at commensurate salaries and remuneration for the capability and the skills that are necessary.
Yeah, OK. Well, Geddes, thank you. Are you bidding for that job?
No, it's a bit below my pay grade.
Not for 50k.
Quite right.